What? We gardena en gerdagun, thaod kaninga thin kahunum, hutha epilingus ella chemendon. Sounds like German, right? Well, it's not. This is actually an excerpt of Beowulf in English, or what we now call Old English. English has gone through many changes over the last 1600 years to get to what we speak currently. Today, I'll speak about the three main periods of English. First, how Old English started. Secondly, how it transitioned to Middle English. And lastly, the transition to modern, encompassing the period from Shakespeare to today. Now let's travel back to the time of Old English and its origins. Old English is a Germanic language most closely related to Frisian and German. It originated from the Angles and Saxons, two tribes from northern Germany, who invaded the British Isles between 400 and 750 AD, according to Arthur Wormald. Since they were separated from other German dialects, their language began to evolve independently. In the book, Language, Its Structure and Use, Arthur Finnegan states English remained relatively the same during this period, but from 789 to 900, the Danes invaded England. This Dane invasion brought new words to English, from window to root. Another change that's thought to have happened during the Danes' invasion is the loss of word endings. Since the Anglo-Saxons came from an area close to the Danes, the two languages were very similar. The main differences were the word endings, so they just dropped them to better communicate. These endings were gender and tense-based. You might remember learning something like this in Spanish class with amigo or amiga for gender-specific words. This would be amig following the same principle. The Old English period lasted from 450 to 1100 AD. Even though Old English underwent many changes, more drastic changes were in store for the Middle English period. Middle English developed from around 1100 to 1500 AD. In 1066, the Normans, a people from northern France, invaded England. Morse, 2001, states in his lecture notes, the Normans were viewed as a more learned and developed culture. Their influence was powerful in the way of religion, economy, and political settings. But they didn't take over the English language by forcing people to speak French. According to Drought, from 1100 to 1200, the English aristocracy and upper class adopted French as their language. French is viewed as a higher language, and that was therefore used in courts, law, and literature. From 1300 up, Middle English really started to adopt French words and become influenced by it. Upper class children were brought up by English maids, and so therefore were brought up bilingual. And over time, French words began to spread throughout the English language. Some of these words include canon, countess, baron, and butler. Morse also says from 1420 to 1460, English began to resurge and replace French again. King Henry V played an influential role in this transition since he spoke and wrote English. During this time, there was also a famous writer named Chaucer. He is often referred to as a standard of Middle English, like in this excerpt of Canterbury Tales. One that April with his shore sulte, the Dr. March hath pierced to the root. Even though we hear and see some familiar words, this is still quite different from the language we speak today. With a little help though, most of us can read Chaucer and other writers from this period, yet we are much more comfortable with modern English. The transition from Middle to Modern English took place between 1450 and 1500. One notable example of this is the Passon Letters, which were a collection of letters from the Passon family, as you can see on the screen. You can get the message from this letter, but some of the words seem strange to us today. According to Finnegan, one of the main things that separates early modern English from today's English is the great vowel shift. During this period, short vowels began to combine with long vowels like A and O. This shift has given English fewer vowels than other Latin and Germanic languages today. Another change in this period, according to EnglishClub.com, was the introduction of the printing press in the 1470s. This allowed spelling and grammar to become fixed, and it also allowed books to become cheaper, and in turn, more people learned to read and learn a certain type of English. Morse also states during this time was the Renaissance, which greatly influenced English. During this time, England started to connect with other parts of the world, and adopted new intellectual words and phrases from different places. This age is also rich with literature, including the famous playwright Shakespeare. Ye all hath probably read Shakespeare at some point, like this famous line, "Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo?" It should be relatively easy to read his works, even though they are 400 years old. The main difference is vocabulary and pronunciation. Over the years, with new discoveries and inventions, we have also added many new words to the English language, from pony, for you older people out there, means to beat, it's a video game term, and cell phone. As you can see, our language of English has changed much over the centuries. Each age has had large impacts from many different things. Some of the histories we learned were that during the Old English period, one of the main things was the Danes' invasion that removed word endings. In the Middle English period, the Normans came and added French vocabulary, and in modern English was the Great Vowel Shift and the change in pronunciation. English has gone through many changes over the years and is still evolving. It'll be interesting to see how our language changes in the future. But for now, TTYL!